Like clockwork, we are back. Good morning, Wareham. It is Friday, August 7th, and we have a great show here for you. The news headlines, the weather report, and today in history. This morning, we'll air my exclusive interview with Dr. Kimberly Sheverhood, the superintendent of Wareham Public Schools, discussing the district's plan and options for school reopening coming this fall. And speaking of school, we have Indiana Troop, a student at Wareham, here to talk about what he thinks. But before we get to any of that, let's take this moment to thank Not Your Average Antiques, an antique shop down Cranberry Highway in East Wareham, for donating the props that you see in the morning show. So stay tuned because the news headlines and the weather report are up next. Okay, Wareham Week had the following headlines. Better a building than a person. You said it. A man drove his car into a building on Main Street on Tuesday. Wareham police say he was highly intoxicated. John Lopes, 71 years old, of Marion, was arrested at the scene for operating under the influence of liquor, negligent operation of a motor vehicle, speeding, and failure to stop at a stop sign. The incident happened around 1:42 p.m. Lopes was believed to have driven down the hill on Chapel Street, failed to stop at the stop sign and the intersection, and continued to travel across at least 30 feet of pavement before his car came to a full final stop within the building at 367 Main Street. No one was injured. Thank goodness. And triple E mosquitoes are back. The Massachusetts Department of Public Health announced Wednesday that the Eastern equine encephalitis, also known as triple E positive mosquito, has been found in Wareham. So far, the department reports 39 triple E positive mosquitoes have been sampled, and one person has been diagnosed with the virus. Wareham is listed as a high risk for triple E. The town health department recommends taking precautions against the mosquito bites. The peak hours for mosquitoes are between dusk and dawn. Plymouth County Mosquito Control are conducting spraying to mitigate the issue. Please visit plymouthmosquito.org to learn more about spraying. And Smithers in Wareham is looking to expand cannabis testing to its lineup of testing services. The Smithers officials said that the testing would be similar to the work the company does on chemicals and products, and that the volume of products being tested on the site would be extremely low. Cannabis testing is required by the Cannabis Control Commission on each of the product manufactured in Massachusetts. Smithers representatives said that the cannabis testing would allow the company to make 7 new hires over the next 5 years. Voters will need to approve a 0-foot setback from schools for the facility since Smithers' lab is within 500 feet of the Dickus School. And Mass Health says Wareham Nursing Home has failed to meet the state's standards required during the pandemic. The healthcare, located at 50 Indian Neck Road, has also been cited for their historic record of poor performance. On Monday, the facility was sent a termination notice. This is the first step in eliminating the facility from Mass Health program, which could lead to facilities closure. Mass Health stated that Wareham Healthcare has demonstrated poor adherence to the most basic infection control practices, including a failure to properly use personal protective equipment and properly group patients who had tested positive for coronavirus. In 2017 and in 2019, the facility received 1 out of 5 possible stars by Medicare, which bases its ratings on healthcare inspections, the quality of resident care measures, and staffing. Math House is the name of Medicaid and the Children's Health and Insurance Program in Massachusetts. And Wareham voters have 3 voting options ahead of the fall state primary and presidential elections. Residents can vote by mail, voting early, and voting on election day. All registered voters are qualified to vote by mail in the fall election. Application postcards to receive a vote by mail ballot have been mailed out to all registered voters for the state primary, while applications for the presidential election will be sent out in the coming weeks. Voters are urged to return their postcards early to allow enough time for the application to be processed and the postal service to deliver a ballot on time. Ballots must be returned to the town clerk's office by 8 p.m. on election day to be counted. Requests for vote by mail ballot can be tracked online under the town's website, or you can call the clerk's office. No application is required to vote early in either election. Early voting for the state primary election will be held at the town hall from August 22nd through the 27th, while early voting for the presidential election will begin on October 17th and run through October 29th at Town Hall. And Wareham Selectman Alan Slavin voted no confidence in Chair Peter Teitelbaum and Clerk Judith Whiteside at the Board of Selectmen's July 28th meeting. Slavin said that he had been disturbed by Teitelbaum and Whiteside's apparent disregard for precedent and procedures since the board was reconstituted following the election. According to a long-standing tradition, the position for chair and clerk has been filled on a rotating basis to give all the members of the board the chance to serve. Following the procedure, Jim Menees should have been at least a clerk, and Whiteside should have served as the chair. But Whiteside and Teitelbaum, with the support of Patrick Tropiano, elected Whiteside as clerk and Teitelbaum as chair, blocking Selectman Menees from serving as either the clerk or the chair. Slavin says Selectmen Whiteside, Teitelbaum, and Tropiano are not being honest or transparent about what is going on. And that concludes this morning news headlines. We'll be right back with that weather report.
Social distancing and staying home are the best ways to limit the spread of COVID-19. But if you must go out, make sure you cover your face. You can use anything that covers your nose and mouth, including dust masks, scarves, and bandanas. But leave the surgical masks and N95s for healthcare workers. Remember, masks slow the spread when you must go out, but staying home and social distancing are the best ways to protect yourself and others. For more information, visit mass.gov/COVID-19.
Much cooler day today. Was actually a cooler night. I do not know about you, but I did not turn on my air conditioner last night. Just open the door. No. Open the window. And used my fan. Anyways, it's going to be cloudy today with some rain. It's expected. Temperatures will be in the upper 70s. There is a small chance for rain throughout the week, but the sun will come out tomorrow, August 8th, with temperatures reaching the 80s. Mostly cloudy on Sunday with temperatures in the mid-80s. Sunny with clouds mixing together throughout the week with temperatures in the upper 80s and a bit of rain showers here and there. And that concludes this morning and this week's weather forecast. We'll be right back with more.
We want to talk to you about medical emergencies.
The kind that would result in a visit to the ED before the coronavirus hit.
The kind that would start with chest pain and sweating.
Or with difficulty speaking and drooping of the face.
Or an accident like a fall or the slip of a kitchen knife.
These are still the kind of emergencies that require a trip to your local emergency department.
Despite this pandemic,
We assure you hospitals are doing everything possible to keep emergency departments clean and safe.
And we are here to provide care to you and your family, but you must not delay.
Because when it comes to your health, time can be the difference.
Between life and death.
If you experience a medical emergency, call 911 or go to your local emergency department.
Our guest is not in the studio. Indiana Troop is not in the studio yet, so we are going to do history. With that, hello and thank you for being with us this morning. We are broadcasting live from our WCTV studio in Wareham. This is Good Morning Wareham, your source for local news, weather, and more information. And now for a moment in history, let's take a look at where Bob White was in history today. Okay, welcome back. Bob White was not born. Bob White, 1781, 82. No, okay, 1782. General George Washington, the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army, creates the Badge of Military Merit, also known as the Purple Heart. The badge was to be presented to soldiers for any singularly meritorious action. And also today in 1959, Bob was well alive and kicking. Say cheese, Earth. Today, the first U.S. satellite to photograph the Earth is launched. From the Atlantic Missile Range in Cape Canaveral, Florida, the U.S. unmanned spacecraft Explorer 6, commonly known as Pedal Wheel, satellite is launched into an orbit around the Earth to take pictures of the Earth's surface and cloud cover from a distance of 17,000 miles. The photo received in Hawaii took nearly 40 minutes to transmit. Today, it only is merely a second to get a picture. Also, today in history, in 1998, well, I was alive and kicking, U.S. embassies in East Africa were bombed. The U.S. embassy in Nairobi, Kenya, and one in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania were attacked in a dual terrorist attack that killed 224 people, including 12 Americans, and wounded more than 4,500 people. The United States accused Saudi exile Osama bin Laden for masterminding the bombings. And for today's birthday shout-out goes to Vera Farmiga. This American actress, director, and producer was born today in 1973 in Clifton, New Jersey. She's well known for her movies like The Conjuring, Up in the Air, also a TV show by the name of Bates Motel, and many more. She turns 47 years young today. And happy birthday to everybody else celebrating their big day. That is all I have for today in history. To learn more cool historical facts, you may go online under history.com. Stay with us. I hear our guest is here, so we're going to take a break and we'll come back. We'll see.
definitely doesn't feel, I guess, as rewarding as it would have if, you know, we had been able to finish out the school year with one another. A big part of it was just missing my teachers. I definitely missed my teachers a lot more than I thought I would. Just like that face-to-face interaction, and not even just like being able to learn in person, but having them to talk to. I mean, I love all of my teachers, and you can just tell how much the teachers at Wareham care about their students.
What can you say about the year 2020 so far?
A lot of 2020 has been kind of a light. I use that analogy as a light because a light shows things in the dark that you wouldn't normally see. And I think a big part of people's attitudes, it isn't just about, you know, the events that go on, but it's how people respond to the events that go on.
What does your next chapter look like?
So I do plan on attending college. I'm going to be attending the College of the Holy Cross in the fall, hopefully in person. I'm going to be studying bio and neuroscience as a double major, and I'm also going to be on the pre-med track. I think being a doctor has always been something that I want to do, so I'm really, really excited about kind of getting to pursue that passion further.
Wareham High School's new graduation date is set for Friday, August 7th. Here is Grace's message to fellow high school graduates, class of 2020.
In the words of Dr. Seuss, sometimes you never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory. Just 3 months ago, we were receiving the definitive news that no, we would not be returning to school for the last few months of our senior year. And I know I speak for most, if not all of you, when I say I would give anything to have back just one more day of our senior year. I want you all to know how incredibly proud we should be of ourselves. After all, we did it. Despite the odds, despite having to take up a completely new schedule, despite having to work through endless distractions at home, despite having to travel to the Matrix and back just to complete an assignment, we did it. And while we'll never get those last 3 months with each other back, I never want you to forget how valuable your time as a part of this school community truly was. And while we will inevitably go down in history as the Corona class, I don't think that's what defines us. Rather, I think it's how we responded to this unprecedented situation as a class and as a community as a whole that defines us. So as we move on to this next chapter and leave this school and town that has played such a significant role in who we have become, continue to spread that spirit of acceptance and support to all those around you and never lose a sense of community that defines who we are.
And welcome back. We have Indiana in the studio. You know him. How you doing?
I'm good.
So, of course, you're famous already. You're famous enough. But this is how important you are. They read your statement yesterday.
They
by
did.
yesterday,
yeah.
During the school committee meeting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and the parents, including students, pretty much the residents, got to air in regarding the opening this fall. So, how about you tell us where you stand?
Yeah, there was a lot of people watching that meeting last night, which was good because there's not always a lot of people watching those meetings. But no, you know, I really want to make sure we're doing this safely. And I've talked to tons of kids, and I've made sure that I'm hearing everyone. And yeah, a lot of us want to go back, and a lot of us want to be in school. I want to be in school just as much as anyone. But I mean, there comes a point where if it's not going to be safe, and I mean, you look at summer camps and places around that there's been so many outbreaks. Mr. Fitzgerald, who was at the meeting yesterday, read a statement, and he was saying just cases after cases and situations where there was these huge outbreaks in summer camps and schools and among kids. And people say, well, it doesn't even travel among kids, and all those cases basically prove that wrong. So my thought is, if it's done the safe way and we go slow into it, then I'd love to be back in school. But also, the same kids that I've talked to that say they want to be back in school are also saying, well, if there's no sports, if there's no dances, if there's no pep rallies, if there's no advisory, if there's no lunch, if there's none of that, then
What's the point?
Exactly.
Truly. And then, so when you insist that you want this to be done rightly and you want this to be done safely, whom are you protecting?
I think it's a little bit of everyone. I think the faculty first. I mean, our teachers. I mean, yes, it travels fast among students, but teachers are the ones. We're not kids. as we can get sick, but we have a very low chance of passing away from this virus. While our teachers, I think it's 6% now is the mortality rate among people infected, which is crazy. I mean, that's out of 100 teachers, 6 teachers. It's crazy to think about. So, and I've seen tons of videos and tons of people saying, I mean, what is it going to feel like to lose someone while we're in school? That's what we're preparing for, and it's really sad. And just like Mr. Fitzgerald said yesterday, it's a life or death decision going back to school, that it's going to affect thousands of lives.
Now, the school committee ended up voting the superintendent's recommendation.
Right.
And that is to transition softly towards hybrid approach.
Right.
We're going to start remotely, and we're going to look and see where that goes. So that means we are reverting back to how it was.
Yeah.
Earlier in the year when you guys were studying remotely.
Right.
You can handle it?
You know,
aren't you exhausted?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but what else can we do? I mean, there's no going back full time. That's off the table. Yes, it's an option, but not a possibility. I mean, I haven't heard one physician recommend that, that every kid goes back to school full time. I've heard a lot of people in power, like the education commissioner, encourage kids to go back to school and encourage school committees to vote for kids to go back full time. But I've also heard that that same person is giving pressure to school committees, and which hasn't been confirmed, but there's a lot of people that have sources that are saying that school committees are getting a lot of pressure from the powers that be.
And the thing is, you are very involved. Okay, yeah. You spread your tentacles everywhere. So learning from home, what does this do to you as a student who is so involved, and how are you going to keep that up?
Well, I mean, my big thing is clubs. I'm in tons of clubs, and it's the same thing for a lot of kids. I keep saying throughout this whole thing, and I said it last night in the statement that was read, that high school isn't just learning and MCAS and reading and writing. It's the experience too, and part of that experience is the clubs and the dances and all the conferences and competitions we get to go to with the clubs. And for any of that not to happen, which is what we're looking at right now, it's like I was saying earlier, is it worth it to go back? And I think that's what a lot of kids are saying, and a lot of kids. A ton of kids want to go back. Just like I said, I want to go back, but I don't want it to be 6 feet apart, masks, and that's how it's going to be. And I've heard from a ton of people that we have this, I think it's October 5th date, where we'll be going back to school with the hybrid, and until then we'll be online. But then I've heard from tons of teachers that we should expect November, and I've heard from a ton of teachers that we should expect January. And I've heard from a ton of teachers that we should expect to go back sometime and then leave again in March. There's a lot of
uncertainties.
Exactly.
Still. Okay.
Just like the beginning. Just like the beginning of this whole thing, there's still new questions that are coming up every day and new answers that are coming out every day. And we really just have to sit back.
Okay. Well, I thank you so much,
Yeah.
Indiana, for coming and airing your point of view on this, and I'm glad that the school voted accordingly.
Absolutely,
And we'll see. We'll touch base as the year goes on.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right.
To my viewers, that was the Indiana Troop, the one and only, okay? Talking about how he feels regarding school reopening, as I said last night's school committee meeting. The board voted to recommend the superintendent's proposal. Speaking of the superintendent's proposal, we're going to be airing my interview this morning, my exclusive interview with the superintendent regarding school reopening and what she proposes, in which the board voted on last night. So here it is. School in Massachusetts are scheduled to return in the fall, but what would that picture look like? With me is the Superintendent of Wareham Public Schools, Dr. Kimberly Sheverhood, to talk about school reopening and what that would mean for your child. Stay tuned. Let's start with how these last few weeks have been for you.
Well, I think I'd really take you back to March 13th, because when we received the message that schools were closing for a period of time, what we now know of how education operated, it has changed dramatically. At that point, we went remote. I am so grateful and complimentary of the job that our faculty and staff did, and of our students, and of course of the parents, because everybody pitched in. It was not a great situation, but they made the very best of it. And as we progressed through the summer, the Department of Secondary and Elementary Education would release different guidelines, would let us know this is what's coming. And so we have had the opportunity to work on a number of plans. The way we approached it in Wareham, we formed a district committee that was more of an umbrella committee. And then from there, the principals formed their building level committees. They involved parents, teachers, paraprofessional, we had custodians, we had clerical. So we had everybody, food service, everybody that worked in our buildings or participated in Wareham schools involved as representative. They developed 3 plans. One is remote, one is hybrid, and one is face-to-face. And as we've progressed, you know, the plans started developing. There's some commonalities in each of the plans, and then there's some unique features depending on the schools. We also have been looking at transportation and how that's going to go. And we have our counselors and social workers working, because we know that social emotional aspect, when our students come back, we're going to have to spend some time on it, because really it's been quite a disruption. And for people to deal with disruption, you know, at times there's a process. How we operate schools, if we come back, you know, even at a hybrid model, there's protocols, procedures that must be in place. So I guess to summarize, we've had events that have occurred that have never occurred before in education, so we have done our very best to deal with them, and we continue to deal.
Well, as you mentioned, the Department of Secondary and Elementary Education did provide 3 options to evaluate whether to open fully in person, whether to do a hybrid approach, or to reverse back into fully virtual learning. Kids at home, teachers are also teaching from home. So the deadline of that proposal is this week. On Thursday, you are to submit what would work, or what you see would be the best approach here in Wareham. What have you voted on?
Well, we've had a number of workshops where the principals have presented their plans to the school committee. Our special education department has also submitted the plans and spoken with the school committee about them. So on Thursday night, the school committee will then vote for what they believe will be our plan that in turn I will submit to the Department of Education.
It seems like the school committee is looking or favoring the hybrid approach. Do we have details to what that would look like?
Sure. Well, first of all, I need to say anything that we do, the safety of our students and our staff, that's our #1 priority. That speaks volumes. That's our highest, that's what we are building everything around. we would really like to have our students back face to face. I'm not sure at this point that is the safest thing for us to do. We also know that at any given moment this year, we could be shut down and go remote. If we do go remote, it's going to look quite different than it did from the spring. So we need to spend a period of time at the beginning of school working with our staff on different learning platforms, on how we're going to deliver curriculum, and how we're going to move forward, how we're going to engage students. The other piece that we need to spend some time doing is working with our students and our staffs on various protocols. Mask wearing, how do we enter and exit the buildings? How do we enter and exit the buses? What do we do if a person is sick? And how we just respond, because we've never had to respond in this manner. So we need to make sure that everybody is on the same page, that we've gone through everything that we can possibly think of just to make sure that we do our very best to keep people safe.
Okay. So that hybrid approach, what are you proposing? What kids will be coming in and who are going to be staying home, and for how long?
Well, so one of the pieces that we're in negotiations with our unions would be, when would we start the hybrid approach? We're going to start at this point in a remote setting. The Department of Education has lowered the number of student days to 170. So that means when we start school, I think it's August 26th with staff, we have days built into the calendar for professional development, 2 days. We then are going to extend another 10 days where we will be working with staff on platforms, on learning platforms, on getting rooms ready, etc. Because one of the things that DESE has required, everything in a classroom needs to come out except desk and chairs, and maybe a few pieces of material, items that kids would work with. Everything else needs to be out. So that's something that's going to have to occur once school starts, because you know how teachers bring in their own supplies at times and things to make their classroom attractive. That's going. So when we start, we're going to bring kids in a very small group. What we would like to do is students will be divided into 2 groups, cohort 1 and cohort 2. We would like to keep families in the same cohort, so if you have children at the high school, the middle school, and maybe DECAS, they're all going at the same time. We don't want you 2 days to go one building and then another group of children go at a different time. We think while this is not convenient for families, and I understand that, this would be less disruptive. So students will be divided into 2 groups. Right now, our proposal would be for cohort 1 to go on Monday and Tuesday. Cohort 2 would go Thursday and Friday. Wednesday is a deep clean day because we're changing groups, and then we'll start the deep clean on Friday after school's out for the following Monday. At a certain point, then, when students are not at school, then they're remote learning. So lessons will just continue during the 3 days they're home.
Wow. What is busing going to look like with this plan?
Well, that's certainly going to be a challenge for us because we have limited buses and we have limited drivers. Trying to find enough bus drivers in the state of Massachusetts is very challenging. We have guidelines that we have to abide by, and buses are approximately a third full. So we are right now in the process of the people that signed up, we're placing them on bus routes. what needs to happen next after the school committee would vote, if they accept the remote, then we're going to have to develop the cohorts very quickly because that will impact busing on who's going to ride on Monday and Tuesday, who's going to ride on Thursday and Friday.
Now, let's say we get to the hybrid approach, and then one of our students has tested positive of coronavirus or a family member at home. What is the protocol?
So one of the things that will happen every day, anybody that sets foot in our building, we're going to know where they've been, who they've come in contact with, and because we'll have to make notification for contact tracing to occur. If there are people that are determined to be within the given distance and the time length of exposure, they will be notified and they will be quarantined.
So they come in, they get a piece of paper with some questionnaires of what their last 24 hours looked like?
No, we can't do that.
Yes.
But what we would do is when somebody comes in the building, we're going to know what exactly their schedule is. And because everything, there's not going to be really a time when students can just wander through the halls. There's never that time anyway. But even in passing periods, everything is going to be very controlled. So we do our due diligence in keeping people as safe as possible. If we serve lunch at school, it will be in a classroom. There's no more socializing in the cafeteria or wandering outside with friends during lunchtime. Everything is just really going to be contained. At this point, we also do not really want people in the building other than students and staff. In the past, we've welcomed volunteers. This year, that's going to be very difficult for us just because we want to contain as a limit on contact.
Now, is the state, to your knowledge, working, the Department of Education, are they working towards, once again, if that a case present itself, what you as an administrator can do in your district?
Well, it's really kind of interesting because the state's giving all of these guidelines, and not that they're attaching strings to it, but we've also been told that likely there may be money coming from the federal government, but if you're remote, your chances of getting that money are not great. You have a much better chance of receiving that money is if you are either hybrid or face-to-face. So they have it. So while everything's suggestions, we try to follow suggestions.
Isn't that backwards? Don't you need that money right now in order to assure the hybrid or a full in-person reopening?
I do. Actually, it would be virtually impossible for us to do a full opening face-to-face for several very important reasons. The first being, I do not have enough staff to do that and meet the guidelines of both the CDC and the state. I would need 156 more employees, which would translate to about $9 million. I then would need approximately 30 more classrooms. And then I would have to buy technology. I would have to outfit those classrooms with supplies, et cetera, meaning like desks and chairs. And, people might say, well, you have all of that. Well, we do have it, but in many of our classrooms, we have tables. And at a table, you can only have one person unless it is a very large table, because at the elementaries, we have people distanced 6 feet apart. At the high school, we have them about 3 to 4 feet apart, just because we can't do any more at that point. So we would still have to buy furniture because we don't have enough desks and chairs to make it work. So we really can't go face to face right now without doing some kind of a hybrid model. We just don't have the facilities, nor do we have the employees or the money.
You mentioned masks. You mentioned keeping being socially distant. How are teachers, how are they going to reinforce this? I'm looking at elementary school kids. And what resources are there for the administrators in these classrooms?
Well, the state has sent out a list of PPE items that we should have. So we've been making purchases all along. And as far as masks, we're making some purchases of masks that we will have available for people to wear. In the elementary grades 2 and up, they need to have a mask on unless they're 6 feet away. On the bus transportation, they have to have a mask on during transportation. And so that's one of the pieces that we really need to work with students on, is mask protocol and why it's very important to wear masks. In the high school and middle school, it's non-negotiable. You have to have a mask on. And so we need to make sure that everybody understands the importance, why we need to have it done, and it's as much about your safety as it is your peers' or your friend's safety.
Now, that sounds so easy, but we know in practicality it's not so. I'm thinking at little things such as either if it is an issue of bullying or an issue of cell phones in a classroom, and sometimes parents and teachers are not on the same page. Parents demand something, teachers are trying to enforce the policy, they're not on the same page. Yep. So when it comes to this, especially when it comes to masks, still there is a group within our society who do not believe that they protect us, that they are a necessity. So how are you prepared when you have a parent who doesn't feel that their child should wear a mask all the time, or they don't really see the point?
Right, I understand that. And if there's a medical reason why a child should not wear a mask, we just need the medical documentation. If you cannot provide the medical documentation, I appreciate your point of view, but if your child is going to attend our school, they will have a mask on. If your child chooses not to wear a mask, we are offering remote learning, and your child will be invited to attend remote learning. But they will wear a mask at school.
I love this. You got to do what you need to do.
You do, and I think, and the other piece is, that's one of the conversations we're going to have with teachers. Because, even as a parent, there's sometimes I really, really wanted to say to my child, okay, just this one time. And it would always come back to haunt me, because you just can't make exceptions about certain things. That's what I need our staff to understand and follow, because there might be some poor student that is just really struggling and needs to take that mask off, but you just can't do it, because it has to be consistent. Because any time that we're not consistent, that opens the door and makes it difficult the next time or for the next student. And students see when exceptions are made, and this is one time they just can't be.
So the district, did you guys eventually send out those surveys to parents to get their feedback? And what was the results of those surveys?
Yes, we did send out some surveys. surprisingly, it's neck and neck between hybrid and remote. There's a small percentage difference with people wanting their child to be in a hybrid situation, and there's in third place is face-to-face, and that was in the 20%. There's going to be another survey going out shortly, and we're going to ask, are you enrolling your child in a remote setting? Because we need to know who's not coming back because you don't feel comfortable sending your child to school. That's fine. As a parent, that's your right. We just need to know that so we can program to work with your child, because we will be offering a remote setting.
So what if the majority of the parents prefer remote setting? Do you need to maintain a certain amount of numbers of kids in order to go with the hybrid approach?
No.
No.
And I think that what I do need to know is how many are going to go with the remote and how many are going to go with the hybrid, because we certainly need to program. And in the elementary, it's a little bit more easy because I don't need content-specific classroom teachers. But in the high school or middle school, I need to know what teachers are going to be working remotely, because I need to make sure I have an English, a math, science, etc. teacher that has that ability to work remotely so the students get their academics.
What do the teachers prefer?
I think it's a real mixed bag. I've heard from some teachers that are scared to death to come back, and I understand. There are family situations, there are health situations. I understand. There are other people that, once things are put into place and there are protocols in place and they're followed, they're ready to come back. So I just think that it's a very mixed bag. I also know that our MTA, the teachers organization, is certainly speaking out against returning to school statewide, not in Wareham, but just statewide. There's some very strong statements being made. My job is to make sure that our buildings and are as safe as they can possibly be, and we've put everything in place that we can make happen, and that's what we're doing. I need staff to follow up and make sure that we follow all our protocols, etc., and I need students to do their part. And as long as we're working collaboratively together, then we stand a much better chance of keeping everyone safe. At some point, if the numbers start to escalate, then a decision will have to be made if we're going to shut down and do full remote, or let's hope the other way, our numbers dissipate. Maybe at some point we can get everybody back. That's our ultimate goal.
Melissa Fay, the Director of Student Services, she is leading or working with a task force, being tasked at searching for research-based decisions to help students who are likely to be more severely impacted by a lack of face-to-face learning. What are some findings they have found? What are some solutions, and are they feasible?
Right. Well, we do know that there are some students that we really, really, really want to get back right now, 100% of the time. And we're going to be working with our teachers and with the parents to bring our students that are the high-need students back. We know that as long as we have very small groups and we have our protocols in place, then we feel like we can bring students back. There are some students that need to come back, but not maybe 4 days a week, maybe 3 days a week. And really in that area with our special needs students, we're looking at what's best for that student and what will work best in coming back to school.
And do you think the budget will allow for you guys to make those special accommodations? Okay. Okay. And also, Bethany Chandler, the principal of Dacus Elementary School, did voice that remote learning has its challenges, especially for the youngest students. She explained that for young children with parents at home without parents at home during the day, this could be very challenging. These kids could be under the guardianship of maybe an elder sibling, or this is going to put parents in a very tough situation. So given this, how do we reconcile? What is a compromise maybe?
Yeah. I'm not sure there's any easy solution for that one. I know I've been contacted by parents who really don't know what to do. They depend on us to work with their child during the day while they're working. And now that we're not or may not be back in school, what kind of child care is available? I understand. I really do. But I also know that our job is to educate. And I cannot safely educate students and staff without certain parameters and conditions. We've reached out to the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, to look at if there's any options that they could help us at. And it's certainly a dilemma at this point.
Now, you've been an educator for a very long time. You have battled with our own challenges here in Wareham in regards to budgets, and you've tried to make it work. And now the COVID-19 coronavirus came and added more challenges. I'm wondering if there's any time in your career where you can look back and said, it was tough to be an educator, to be in this industry as it is now.
No, no. There has never been a time like this. There's always been challenges in education, but the challenges that we faced in education before Corona had been faced by others. And so there were kind of pathways and answers or guidelines that you could seek out. There's nothing that even compares to this that anyone in education can look for. I think the thing that has kept everybody in Wareham going is we've been in it together, we're working collectively, we have the best interest of students and staff at heart, and we're doing the very best we can. You know, summertime, believe it or not, in the world of education is one of the busiest times of the year because we're getting ready for a new school year. We have all of the nitty-gritty going on, the scheduling, the preparation, the ordering, etc. We have never had a time that has been busier than this past summer. Very little vacations, no vacations have been taken. There's no time off. It's working 7 days a week to make this work. And I have to tell you, I'm getting a little panicked because that drop-dead window of school starting is approaching and there's so much to do. So we're going to make it. We will be ready, but it certainly is a different time.
You're setting precedents.
We are. We are. And I hope that there's no other generation that needs to experience what we've had to experience recently. I hope they never have to do this again.
What type of grading system would we adopt coming fall?
Right. There will be a grading system. There is accountability. You know, when we went out in March, we had covered the majority of the standards up to that point because we're getting ready for the MCAS testing. You know, the end of the year's coming. It was time that we approach certain things. This is a whole different way to look at it because everything is new. There are new standards, there's new skills that have to be learned. So there is accountability that's going to happen. There will be grading and assessments. It's different.
And to conclude, of course, we have a big event this Friday, graduation. Tell me, how important was this to give these kids some type of an in-person graduation to end and to commemorate their hard work?
Well, you know, I think that if you look at in education, it's so traditional. There are so many traditions that we have in education. Your first day of school. I mean, how many of us take pictures of our children as they're getting ready? Their last day of school. They're moving from kindergarten to first grade. They're going into high school. And then finally, their senior year. It's just steeped with traditions. There's honor night, there's senior week, there's the prom, and our students missed that. But they've received a lot of kindness as well. And probably one of their biggest cheerleaders is the principal, Mr. Palladino. And Mr. Palladino said from the get-go, these kids are going to have a graduation. I mean, he held tight to that. I'd say, Scott, are you really sure? Kim, they're going to have it. I know they're going to have it. You know, and so I'm so happy that we're able to give this to them. Not only to the students, but to their parents and to their family and relatives. It's the least we can do for the type of ending they had in their career.
Now, speaking of the least we can do, of course, the state is seeing a recent uptick, and Governor Baker has warned, I wouldn't say threatened, but he has warned, if he sees these trends going up, he is going to revert back the guidelines. He's going to limit the amount of people we could congregate at one particular place at one time. How nervous are you, given what is about to transpire on Friday?
Yes, I will tell you, I look at those numbers every day, and I'm holding my breath. I will tell you, we will make it work somehow. It could be a drive-by. It could be something different. But come Friday, those students are going to receive their diplomas.
Do you have anything to add?
No. This is brand new to us. I know that the decision that will be made, everyone will not be in agreement. There will be people who will not agree, and there will be people who do agree. Just know that we're working with what we have in the best interest that we can, and we just need everybody working together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To our viewers, thank you so much for joining us for this particular interview. My guest is the Superintendent of Wareham Public Schools, Dr. Kimberly Sheverhood, to talk about this fall, what it's going to look like and what that will mean for your child. For more information, comments, I'm sure she'll be more than happy to hear from you. With that, I wish you all a wonderful day. Bye. Thank you for being with us this morning for another Good Morning Wareham show. If you missed us, this particular program will re-air this evening at 6 p.m. It will also go on our YouTube channel at Wareham Community Television on YouTube. With that, I thank you so much. I wish you all a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. Bye.